everyone! So today I am going to show you how I prune my 2 raspberry bushes that I'm growing in containers on my deck, and I'm actually going to prune them each a different way. So first thing, it's about mid-March right now. Again, I'm in zone 6A, and this is a really good time to start pruning back your raspberry bushes. Now you do want to know, before you start pruning, which kind of raspberry bushes do you have? Do you have everbearing, which can produce a smaller crop in the summer and then a larger crop in the fall? Or do you have raspberries that just produce one crop? Because that's going to be important in determining how exactly it is that you prune. So the raspberry I have is a heritage raspberry, which is an everbearing raspberry. Now, I was responsible enough to actually save the tag on my raspberry bush. So I got this from Stark Bros in 2020. So it's now going to be, I guess, 3 years old this year, which is exciting. I think it's one of like the oldest plants that I have on my deck garden because we moved here in 2020. Now, the reason that the everbearing raspberries can produce 2 different crops, assuming you prune them to get 2 different crops throughout the growing season, is that they can produce berries on both the first-year canes and the second-year canes. Whereas typically if you have a raspberry bush that's only going to produce one crop, it's going to grow the canes the first year and then produce the berries on those same canes the second year. But this one will produce on both. So what I've done up until this point is pruned in the way that I can get 2 crops. They'll be smaller, especially the first one. And I've also read that if you actually prune them to only produce the 1 crop later in the season, that the berries will also taste better. But because I only have 2 plants and I have a small garden, I did like the idea of getting berries multiple times throughout the season instead of just all at once. But since I now have 2 plants, I figured I'll go ahead and try each method. So what I'm going to do for this one is probably what's the easiest method, which is just cutting all of the branches off about 1 inch or 2 above the soil and then letting them all grow back this year. So that's what I'm going to do on this raspberry bush, is I'm going to prune them all back to the ground. It's easier because I'm not trying to figure out which ones are broken, which ones are dead, trying to clear out, the center of the plant so there's good air circulation. I just go ahead and clip them all down. And then on the back one, I'll talk a little bit more about the process there, but that's the one that I'm going to prune so that I do get the smaller crop in summer before I get the second crop later on during the fall. So let's go ahead and start pruning. I guess I should probably show you what I'm using to prune, but I got these gloves last year. They're called hands-on. I don't know if I got them from Amazon, but these are the gloves that I use anytime I need to touch something that is going to stab me. And that includes my raspberry bushes and my roses. I'll also use them sometimes if I'm like picking up an evergreen plant, just because those are a little pokey too, but these have worked really well. It's not something I use that often. I mean, just maybe a few times throughout the year, but I am really glad that I have them. So I have these gloves, and then I have my pruners right here. Now I'll go ahead and chop down all these branches. So I'm going to come right in here, and you can see branches I've pruned off in previous years, but I'm just going to cut down all of these a couple inches above the soil. So I've cut the main branches back down. I did want to show you one thing before I prune the last few little twigs here. But one benefit of growing raspberries in containers is that you can control the spread of the runners. Sometimes runners will poke up on the sides of the container, but there really isn't much of their space for them to go. But what I did last spring is I dug one of these up. So I took my trowel and just kind of pushed down around to break up the roots. I dug it up, I repotted it in a pot the same size, and that is how I have my second raspberry bush. So if I had room, I mean, it's a real struggle right now for me not to dig this up and plant it, but I don't have room for 3, but if I did, I could just dig that up, and then I would have another raspberry bush, and I did get berries on my bush last year that I dug up from a runner. So I'm going to cut those remaining branches off, and then we'll head to the back deck to look at the other bush. So I'm now over on the back deck by my second raspberry bush, and this is the one, like I said, that I dug up as just a very tiny little runner, and this is how much it grew from when I transplanted it last spring till the end of the growing season. Now, because of that, I know that all of the canes on this plant are just a year old, so I'm going to prune them all in the same way. Basically what you want to do, and I'll take you in closer so you can see it in just a second, but I'm going to prune right below where each of these canes produced berries last year, and then what'll happen is for the summer crop, it'll produce berries further down the cane. Now after it does that this year, those canes will be dead, so I'll remove the entire cane of those, and then I'm going to have new canes growing here that'll produce the fall crop. So let me take you in close and I will show you exactly how I'm going to prune this one. And here's Jack, who hears all of the birds outside and really wants to come out, but there's no way I trust him on a rooftop deck. So let's take this cane right here as an example. You can see where it produced the berries all along here, and then I'll just prune so that the berries for this year's summer crop will grow along the bottom of the branch. Now I can just do like right below here, but I kind of want to keep this branch a little straighter, so I'm going to do right there. And a good way to tell that you've cut in the right place is that you can see green on the end of the cane, because the cane tips will start to die if you leave them on it this year. So I'm going to get to pruning this. I'm also going to prune like out some of the smaller branches, anything that seems to be overcrowding the plant, because there are a lot of branches in there. So I'll probably prune some of those out completely, even though they are all just a year old. So here's how this one looks now. Obviously, there are a lot more longer branches left on this one than the other one. I could probably do maybe even a little more cleanup, but that is what I took off of this raspberry bush. So this plant now will give me the 2 crops for next year, and then the front one will just give me 1 larger crop in the fall. And I'll also be able to tell if I really do think there is a flavor or quality difference, and I will let you know. I do plan on moving the one out front to the back with this one, just because I think it fits better back here and there's going to be more space for it. And also, I'm not putting these on wheels like I have my blueberries, because these are in plastic pots, which are easy enough for me to move around on my own. But that is how I prune my raspberries. This was fun because it feels like it's the first real garden task that I've done this year, so that's exciting. Things are really starting to get going. Let me know if you have any questions, how you prune your raspberries, if you have them, and I will see you in the next video.